The crystal chandelier cast fractured light across my grandmother's dining table, illuminating faces I'd known my entire life, but who'd never really known me. My Aunt Patricia stood at the head of the table, wine glass raised, delivering what she probably thought was witty commentary. "It's wonderful having the whole family together," she said, voice dripping with practiced elegance. Then her eyes landed on me. "Even Cassidy, bless her heart. Though I must say, darling, it's such a shame you never learned what it means to have class." She gestured vaguely at my simple black dress, my minimal jewelry. "Look at you. No refinement, no sophistication, living in that tiny apartment. Our family has always had standards, but you clearly didn't inherit them." Polite laughter rippled around the table. My cousins looked away. My grandmother touched my hand sympathetically, and I just sat there, fork in hand, feeling the familiar burn of judgment from people who knew nothing about my life. But I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I simply finished my meal, kissed my grandmother goodbye, and left. 2 weeks later, Patricia's house flooded, and when she had nowhere else to go, I offered her my home. What she found there destroyed every assumption she'd ever made about me. My name is Cassidy Harper. I'm 35 years old, and I live in Melbourne. To my family, I'm the cautionary tale. The one who never recovered after my father's financial collapse when I was 18. The one who wears Kmart instead of designer labels. Drives a 7-year-old Honda. Lives simply. They've decided I'm poor, unsophisticated, lacking in the class they prize above everything. What they don't know is that I own the building I live in, and 11 others across Australia. You know what? Before we go any further, I want to say something. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever had people judge your worth by what they see instead of who you are, I want you to know you're not alone. And if you're here watching this, I'd really appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button. It helps me share more stories like this one, stories about people who prove that quiet success is the most powerful kind. Thank you. Now, let me tell you how this really started. I grew up in what people call comfortable circumstances in Toorak. Private school, holiday houses, the whole setup. My father ran a successful investment firm. My mother hosted charity luncheons. We were the family people aspired to be. Then, when I was 18, everything collapsed. My father was caught in a Ponzi scheme, not as the perpetrator, but as the biggest victim. He lost everything. The house, the savings, the reputation. We moved from Toorak to a rental in Footscray. My private school friends disappeared overnight, and my extended family, led by my Aunt Patricia, cut us off completely. Patricia was my father's older sister, married to a property lawyer living in Brighton. When we needed help, when we were literally choosing between rent and food, she said, "We can't be associated with this scandal. It reflects poorly on the family name." She stopped returning my mother's calls. She didn't invite us to Christmas. She erased us because we'd become an embarrassment. My father never recovered from that betrayal. He died 5 years later, stress and heartbreak accelerating a heart condition. At his funeral, Patricia showed up in black Chanel and told me, "Such a tragedy. He had so much potential." I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded and walked away. After Dad died, I was 23, working 3 jobs, putting myself through a business degree at RMIT. I lived in a shared house in Brunswick, survived on instant noodles, saved every dollar. I watched property shows obsessively, studied market trends, learned everything I could about real estate investment. One day, I saw a studio apartment in Footscray listed for $90,000. The area was rough, the apartment needed work, but something clicked. I could afford a 10% deposit if I liquidated everything. So I did. I bought that studio, fixed it up myself, rented it out. 2 years later, the area gentrified and the value doubled. I refinanced, used the equity as a deposit for another property, then another. Over 12 years, I built an empire. Slowly, quietly, strategically. I now own 12 properties across Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. Residential, commercial, a mix of investments that generate passive income of over $40,000 a month. My portfolio is worth approximately $18 million. And I live in a 3-level penthouse in South Bank with 360-degree views of Melbourne. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Yarra, original artwork on the walls, furniture that costs more than Patricia's car. But I still wear Kmart. I still drive my Honda. Because I learned something my family never understood. Real wealth whispers. It doesn't shout. Have you ever kept success quiet just to see who'd respect you without knowing? Drop the word quiet in the comments if you have. And please, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. What happens next is going to blow your mind. For 15 years, I maintained minimal contact with my extended family. Birthday cards to my grandmother, polite appearances at major events. But I never shared details about my life. When they asked where I lived, I said South Bank, and they assumed I meant one of the cheaper apartment blocks. When they asked what I did, I said property management, and they assumed I was a building manager or rental agent. I let them believe what they wanted. Because I'd learned that people like Patricia only valued you if you fit their definition of success. And their definition was all about appearance. My cousins drove luxury cars they couldn't afford, leased to maintain image. They wore designer clothes bought on credit. They lived in mortgaged houses in the right suburbs, leveraged to the hilt, one missed payment from disaster. But they looked successful. They had class. And that's all Patricia cared about. She'd brag about them at family gatherings, talk about their careers in finance and law, their memberships at exclusive clubs. Then she'd glance at me with pity. Still managing apartments, Cassidy? Well, someone has to do those jobs. The comments accumulated over years. At my grandmother's 80th birthday, Patricia introduced me to her friends as my niece who works in property management. Nothing glamorous, but she's trying. At Christmas 2 years ago, she suggested I borrow one of her old dresses for an upcoming event, since I know money's tight for you, dear. Last year, she excluded me from a family investment discussion because you wouldn't understand these financial matters. Each comment was a small cut, each assumption a dismissal. And I absorbed them all, quietly building my empire while they built their facades. Then came my grandmother's 90th birthday dinner. The comment about me having no class. That was the moment something shifted. Not anger, exactly, but a decision. I was done protecting people who'd never protected me. So when Patricia called 2 weeks later, voice panicked, I saw an opportunity. Cassidy, I'm in a terrible situation. There's been a massive leak in our house. Water damage throughout the second floor. We need to move out for at least 2 weeks while repairs happen. Every decent hotel is fully booked because of the Grand Prix. I was wondering if you knew of any short-term rentals that might be available. I could hear the desperation under her careful tone. She was asking me for help, the niece with no class, because she'd run out of options. Actually, I said slowly, you could stay with me if you'd like. Silence. Then, with you? In your apartment? The doubt in her voice was unmistakable. It's bigger than you think, I said. And I have space. More silence. Pride battling necessity. Finally, that's very kind. I suppose if there's truly no other option, just for a week or so. Of course, I said sweetly. I'll send my driver to pick you up on Saturday. Your driver? Yes, I don't like driving in the city. It's easier to have someone else handle it. I hung up before she could respond. That night, I walked through my penthouse, seeing it as Patricia would see it for the first time. The sweeping staircase between levels, the marble kitchen with Miele appliances, the living room with original Brett Whiteley artwork, the master suite with its own terrace overlooking the city, the guest suite where Patricia would stay, complete with ensuite bathroom and walk-in wardrobe. This wasn't just a home, it was a statement. And Saturday, that statement would speak volumes. this is where everything changes. Stay with me, because what happens when Patricia arrives is going to be absolutely devastating. And if you're loving this story, please hit that subscribe button. The best part is coming. Saturday arrived clear and bright, Melbourne showing off. I'd arranged for Marcus, the driver I occasionally used for events, to collect Patricia from Brighton in the Mercedes. I watched from my top-floor terrace as the car pulled into the private underground garage, Patricia visible in the back seat looking confused. The elevator from the garage opened directly into my penthouse foyer. I heard the mechanical hum, then the doors slid open. Patricia stepped out, overnight bag in hand, and froze. She was standing in a 3-story glass atrium, sunlight pouring through the skylight above, reflecting off polished marble floors. A floating staircase curved upward to the 2nd level. In front of her, floor-to-ceiling windows framed the entire Melbourne skyline. The Yarra River snaked below, silver in the morning light. The city stretched to the horizon. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Cassidy?" Her voice was small, uncertain. I emerged from the kitchen, casual in jeans and a simple shirt. "Patricia, welcome. Can I take your bag?" She didn't move, just stared around the space like she'd entered an alternate dimension. "This is your apartment." "My home, yes. But this is a penthouse. This entire floor." 3 floors, actually. This is the main living area. Bedrooms are upstairs. My office and library are below. I said it casually, like I was describing a normal flat. Her face cycled through expressions: confusion, shock, disbelief. How can you afford this?" "I own it," I said simply, "and the building, plus 11 other properties across Australia." She actually stumbled, reaching for the wall to steady herself. "You own this building?" 12 residential units, 4 commercial spaces on the ground floor. It's one of my better investments. I gestured toward the living area. "Come sit. I'll make coffee. You must be exhausted from the stress of the leak." I walked to the kitchen, an open-plan space with a view that architects would kill for. Behind me, Patricia moved slowly, like she was walking through a dream. She sank onto my Italian leather sofa, still clutching her bag, and just stared. I made coffee in my La Marzocco espresso machine, the same model used in high-end cafes. Brought her a cup in a hand-thrown ceramic mug from a local artist. She took it automatically, not drinking, just holding it. "I don't understand," she finally said. "You drive an old Honda." "It's reliable and paid off. Why would I need anything else?" "You wear chain store clothes. They fit well, and I don't care about labels." "You never mentioned any of this. You let us think you were struggling." I sat across from her, my own coffee in hand. "You assumed I was struggling because I don't perform wealth the way you do. I never corrected you because I wanted to see if you'd respect me without knowing what I had. You didn't." The words landed hard. Patricia's face flushed. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I kept my voice even. "When Dad lost everything, when we were actually struggling, you cut us off. You said we were an embarrassment. You never called, never helped, never acknowledged that we were family. Then for the past 15 years, you've treated me like I'm lesser because I don't dress the way you dress or drive the car you drive." She set down the coffee cup with shaking hands. "I didn't realize." "You didn't ask," I interrupted gently. "You saw what you wanted to see. Someone you could feel superior to." And tears formed in her eyes, mascara threatening to run. "I'm so sorry." "For what specifically?" I asked. "For judging you? For abandoning my brother when he needed help? For treating you like you had no value? Which part are you sorry for, Patricia?" She covered her face with her hands and cried. Real tears, not performative ones. When she finally looked up, her makeup was ruined, her carefully maintained composure shattered. "All of it," she whispered. "I'm sorry for all of it." I handed her a tissue box. Why did you do it? Why did you cut us off? She wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath. Because I was terrified. Richard, my husband, his law practice was struggling. We'd borrowed heavily to maintain our lifestyle. When your father's scandal broke, I was afraid we'd be associated with it, that Richard's clients would lose trust, that we'd lose everything too. She laughed bitterly. The irony is, we nearly did anyway. We're mortgaged up to our eyeballs. The house in Brighton? We've refinanced it 3 times. The cars are leased. The club memberships are stretching us thin. We're 1 bad month from disaster. I studied her. So all the comments about class, about sophistication, about standards, that was all to cover up your own fear? She nodded miserably. I made you feel small so I could feel big. I know how that sounds. I know it's pathetic. It's human, I said quietly. But it's also cruel. I know. We sat in silence for a long moment, the city humming quietly beyond the glass. Finally, Patricia spoke again. How did you do it? Build all this? Hard work, strategic thinking, and not caring what people like you thought of me. She flinched but didn't argue. Can I ask why you still dress simply? Why you don't show this off? I smiled. Because the moment I start performing wealth, I become like you. Obsessed with appearance, measuring worth by what people see instead of what I've actually built. I don't need anyone to know I'm successful. I just need to be successful. Patricia looked around the penthouse again, really seeing it this time. You've done more than any of us, and we treated you like you'd failed. Yes, I agreed. You did. You're still here? Good. Because we're about to reach the conclusion, and it's going to hit differently than you expect. Stay with me until the end, and please, subscribe if this story is resonating with you. Patricia stayed for 12 days while her house was repaired. During that time, something unexpected happened. We talked. Really talked, without the performance, without the pretense. She told me about the pressure she felt to maintain appearances, how exhausting it was to pretend everything was perfect when it wasn't, how she'd sacrificed genuine relationships for shallow approval. I told her about building my business, about the loneliness of success that nobody sees, about choosing substance over show. One evening, we were sitting on the terrace watching the city lights flicker on, the sky turning deep blue. I've been thinking, Patricia said carefully, about what you said, about respect. You were right. I never respected you until I saw this place, until I knew you had money, and that makes me exactly the kind of person I've always claimed not to be. I didn't disagree. She continued, I want to do better. I don't know if you can forgive me for how I treated you, for how I treated your father, but I want to try to be the kind of person who values people for who they are, not what they have. That's going to require you to be honest, I said, with yourself, with Richard, with the family, about your finances, about your struggles, about the fact that the image you've maintained is bankrupting you. She nodded slowly. I know. It terrifies me. It should, I agreed. But it's also the only way forward. A few days later, Patricia returned to her repaired house. Before she left, she hugged me, something she'd never done before. Thank you. Not just for the accommodation, but for showing me what real class looks like. It's not about labels or suburbs or appearances. It's about character. And you have more of it than anyone in our family. I didn't respond to that, just hugged her back and helped her carry her bags to the car. Over the following months, things changed. Patricia started being honest about her financial situation, first with Richard, then with the family. They downsized from Brighton to a modest but comfortable home in Bentley, sold the luxury cars, cut the expensive memberships. And something interesting happened. They seemed lighter, happier, less burdened by the performance. At the next family gathering, Christmas dinner at my grandmother's, Patricia stood to make a speech. I want to say something to Cassidy, she began. The table went quiet. Last year, I said something incredibly hurtful about her having no class. I was wrong. Cassidy has more class than anyone in this family because she lives according to her values, not according to what others think. She built an incredible life without needing any of us to validate it. I'm sorry for the years I wasted judging her, and I'm grateful she gave me the chance to see who she really is. The family looked at me with new eyes. Questions started. How long had I been investing? Could I give advice? Why hadn't I said anything? I answered some, deflected others, because the truth was, I didn't need them to understand everything. I just needed them to stop assuming I was less than because I didn't perform the way they did. My grandmother, 91 and sharp as ever, raised her glass. To Cassidy, who taught us all that true wealth is quiet and real class has nothing to do with what you wear. We drank to that. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt like I actually belonged at that table. Not because I'd proven my worth with a penthouse or a property portfolio, but because I'd finally stopped caring if they saw it. I'd built my life for me, not for them, and that made all the difference. So here's what I want you to know. If people are judging you, dismissing you, treating you like you're less than because you don't fit their narrow definition of success, remember this. Their judgment says more about them than it ever will about you. Real wealth is built in silence. Real class is shown through character. And the people who matter will see your worth without you having to prove it. The ones who don't aren't worth your energy. What do you think? Should I have told Patricia the truth sooner? Or was I right to let her discover it herself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. More powerful, real stories about people who quietly changed their lives are coming your way. Thank you for being here. And remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation for your success. Just keep building, keep growing, and let the noise fade into background.